Hello and welcome to Giant Mess, a super sloppy sports and entertainment podcast that's hosted by a giant mess. That's me, the real cinch, Neil Lynch. I'm a former fourth-string college quarterback and mediocre middle relief pitcher who got himself a film and media studies degree. And now I'm a single dad who likes to talk Mets baseball, Giants football, movies, TV, and comedy. On today's episode, we're going to be reveling in the New York Mets wild card series win over the Milwaukee Brewers in dramatic fashion. Quite possibly the greatest ending to a playoff series in a very long time, if not ever. We'll also preview the upcoming NLDS series against the stinky, filthy Philadelphia Phillies. We'll also take a look at what we learned from the wild card round. So without further ado, play ball. All right, here we are. The postseason is a new season. I believe I mentioned that in the preview of the wild card series against the Brewers. I thought, okay, and I think a lot of Mets fans thought this. We'd much rather go up against the Padres than the Brewers, right? At least with the Padres, we own the head-to-head series this past season. With the Brewers, we only took 1 of 6. And how quickly everyone changed their minds after seeing what happened and unraveled against the Braves in San Diego and what we were able to pull off in Milwaukee. I didn't mention this on the end of regular season recap review episode, but Francisco Lindor's home run in game 161 versus the Braves, the first of 2 in Atlanta, improved the Mets' chances of winning the World Series by 1.85%, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it also makes it the most impactful regular season play since 2012. In case, you had anyone come up to you and say, that wasn't so great. That wasn't so significant. And would I have rather phoned it in game 1 and just took it in game 2? Seeing how everything played out and panned out? No. Nothing would have changed per se in terms of seeding. But to come away from game 1 and the way that we won it, I think just added to the lore, added to the mythology, added to the momentum, the spirit of this team, the mojo. And I think that carried over into the wild card. Whereas you see what happened to the Braves, where it's like, we lose in devastating fashion in game 1. We kind of mail it in game 2 against, I don't know that the Mets were necessarily trying. They were swinging at everything. And so we get the win and we celebrate the postseason berth, but you go in with a kind of a sour taste in your mouth. So I wouldn't have had it any other way. Come out big and win in game 1, especially with the knowing that if we didn't win game 1, we would have to have gone with Severino in game 2 to ensure the victory. Instead, Joey Lucchesi gives us enough innings, 6 innings of 1-run ball where we don't have to mow through most of our bullpen. We can save some arms for the wild card series. So I bring that up because, ultimately, I think a lot of Braves fans or Braves defenders are coming and apologize and trying to get people to feel bad for the Braves because they had to play X amount of games and look at this and that. And it's just like, well, the Mets had to do the same thing. They had to go to Atlanta. So Atlanta hosted. We had to go to Atlanta, win 1 or 2 there in what would drain a lot of teams emotionally, and then go the very next day to Milwaukee. A place that, we mentioned is another house of horrors for us. We just have not been successful there or against that franchise since 2010. I ran down the numbers last episode, but 1-5 this regular season. We lost a bunch to them last season. I think we've only had maybe 1 or 2 seasons where we didn't lose the series, head-to-head series. dating back to 2010. So, I don't think there's any Met fan out there who isn't a fan of Steve Cohen and what he's done for the organization since he's taken ownership. Mets playoff appearances in the Wilpon era, that covers 18 years. 2. Mets playoff appearances in the Cohen era, which is 4 years. 2. So, Wilpon's 20. Wilpons took over in 2002. So it's actually not 2. I think it's more than 2. So they got it wrong, but you get the point. We're making the playoffs at a much higher rate than we did with the Wilpons as owners, because we made it in 2006 and then made it again in 2015 and 2016. So it's technically 3, I think, unless we're not counting 2016 wild card game appearance. I don't know. Carlos Mendoza. I didn't mention this, but it's worth noting. The first rookie manager in Mets history to make the postseason. And he's been somewhat of a soothsayer. He gets asked questions about, this is Pete Alonso's last game. He goes, no, we're going to be back here. Meaning that we were going to, he has the confidence in his team to go into Milwaukee or go into that wild card series and bring it back to Citi Field. And he continued to show confidence in Pete, even when he was facing questions about Pete's struggles, and said, it just takes one swing of the bat. Little did he know. I mean, he did know. Little did we know. And I think the thing that gave Mets fans hope, at least for me, was knowing that what you see in the regular season has becoming, as of recently, modern trends have shown that just because a team has a lot of success against another team head to head in the regular season does not by any means is not a good indicator or prediction or forecast of what to expect in the postseason. It's almost flipped a lot of the time. We mentioned that the Mets were 0-7 against the Cubs in 2015 regular season and swept them in the NLCS. 1-5 against the Brewers in the regular season this year. 2-1 in the postseason. So, there are no Brewers fans listening to this, but if somehow someone shares this with a Brewers fan, and I don't know if you want to hear this, probably not. I don't want to say I feel bad for you, but I kind of do. Because if the Mets are not in the postseason, the Brewers are one of the top teams that I root for in the postseason. And they've made the postseason a whole lot more than we have. So I've been rooting for them, and they always seem to lose in pretty nasty fashion. Milwaukee has not won a playoff series since the 2018 NLDS. You might say to yourself, that's not that long ago, but they lost the wild card game to the eventual World Series champion Nationals in 2019. They dropped 2 straight to the Dodgers in the first round in 2020. They lost 3 of 4 to the Braves in the 2021 NLDS. And they lost both home games to Arizona in the wild card series last fall. That sucks. That sucks to have a team that is good enough to get you there, to give you a chance every year, and to come away with it. Just not even getting, sometimes not even getting out of the first round, and not getting to that second round. It's just tough. That's real tough. So I'm not a Rhys Hoskins fan. I don't know that anyone really is, even Brewers fans, maybe Phillies fans, but I don't have any issues with the Brewers. And as a team, I root for them when the Mets are not in the postseason. Same could be said about the Padres. I like the Padres when the Mets are not in it. The Padres did some interesting stuff when we faced them in the wild card 2 years ago. So it's like, I'm not as, but if you take a look at all the other National League teams that I'd rather see win it, well, the Padres are high on the list. Yeah, I don't want to see the Dodgers win it. Anyone from the NL East, no thank you. The Pirates, I'd probably root for. I don't know if I'd root for the Reds, but Cardinals, no thanks. Diamondbacks, yeah. Diamondbacks, I was pulling for them. So there were some question marks for us heading into this wild card series against the Brewers, right? What shape would we be in for game one? You know, that doubleheader, that last week of the season was brutal. Delays, postponements. We didn't look our best heading into that doubleheader against the Braves on Monday. Dropping that game in Atlanta, we didn't look good. And then dropping 2 of 3 to the Brewers in Milwaukee when what would be a preview of what to expect, right? Didn't look good there. The only reason we won the third game is because Milwaukee took their foot off the pedal and because they'd already clinched the 3 seed. And so people were saying, that's a brutal travel schedule. And that's a lot of high leverage, intense, emotional, draining games back to back to back. Every game was a playoff game, just about. And so, I think a lot of talking heads, experts were like, well, it's great that the Mets are in it, but like they're running out of steam. They're running low on gas. And the Brewers are somewhat rested and look like they're prepared for the sweep. So where would we be physically, emotionally, mentally? And by all accounts, if we're to believe Brandon Nimmo, after we beat the Braves and clinch the series and get on the plane to Milwaukee, everyone's locked in. You have the champagne celebration. You got to celebrate the wins, but they didn't go full tilt. It wasn't like balls to the wall partying. It was like, let's celebrate, but then let's get our minds right for game one. So I think we talked about, will they be able to learn from what happened in 2022? The players have said that they have learned from what happened in 2022. And the results are, proof is in the pudding. The results are there. Looks like they were able to get their heads right and get back into the swing of things. And, the bullpen was something that remained a concern for the fan base and for pundits. Diaz had to throw 40 pitches on Monday after throwing 26 on Sunday. Phil Maton pitched for a third straight day on that Monday, including a multi-inning appearance on Saturday. So we had to lean more heavily or look to Jose Butto, Reed Garrett, and Ryan Stanek. And by all accounts, I think the bullpen held up okay. I don't know that I'm going to give him like an A grade, maybe like a C plus. I think they only really had 2 bad innings, and my God, were they bad. But I was impressed, because the bullpen, I think, if there was one area that we didn't feel totally confident in, it was our bullpen, because our starters had come around down the stretch and had started really giving us quality innings, and then our bullpen was shaky in that first of the 2 September series against Philly. Shaky, giving up 2 leads there. Diaz collapsing against the Braves in that first game. So yeah, that's definitely had us on edge, where it's like we really need our starters to go 6, hopefully 7, just to give us a shot. And I think the starters held their own. There were questions about Sean Manaea, who had been our best starter in the second half, especially in September. But his last start was not great. It was that on Friday against the Brewers, last Friday, 3 2/3, 6 runs, 5 earned, 7 hits, 2 walks, just 1 strikeout. It was one of his worst starts since June. Broke a string of 8 consecutive outings of him pitching at least into the 7th inning. So how would Manaea respond? And we'll get to his postseason record. I didn't realize his postseason record. Yuck, dude. Heading into his game 2 start. Whoa. That should give you pause as a manager and as a fan base. But another question was the lineup. How are we going to treat what are we going to roll with? You know, we know Lindor's locked in, Iglesias locked in, Nimmo, Vientos, Alonso, Alvarez are all pretty much tried and true. But the DH and the outfield were a bit murkier, right? Martinez had been through a really nasty slump, 0 for 30 something, but then he kind of broke out of it over the last week, over that last 3-game stretch, right? That Sunday against the Brewers and then Monday, the doubleheader. Kind of busted out a little bit. Harrison Bader, I didn't know this, but apparently he was one of the worst hitters in the second half. Jesse Winker had cooled off significantly. We did not see Jesse Winker play in game 2 of that Braves doubleheader, where a lot of people thought they would, the booth included. Like, why is Winker not getting bats or in play? And then we come to find out he had some back issues. What's up with these back issues? Doctor said it needed bacchiotomy. It's just super frustrating. We gotta get her. I don't know what core work, more yoga. I'm doing more yoga, and it's helping my back. So I don't know. Maybe some downward dog will do the trick. But Tyrone Taylor had emerged and had gotten hot towards the end of the season, and so now it looked like Mendoza was going to go with him over Bader. Taylor had an 800 OPS in September. And of course, he has steady defense, pretty good arm, and really great base running. And then, I guess Marte has his moments, right? Was slumping, struggling, but then it, has some clutch hits, clutch runs, scored. So that's what we're rolling with. And what could we do differently against the Brewers? Well, Milwaukee came into the series 17 of 17 in stolen bases. So we had to control the run game, and there's nothing that is more demoralizing and deflating for a team, for a Mets team, than when the Brewers just run wild on you. And it's just like they're stealing second, they're stealing third almost every time they get on base. And we held them in check. They also, Brewers have one of the league's best bullpens. Devin Williams, Trevor McGill, Joel Payamps. In 6 games against Milwaukee, the Mets entered the 6th inning with a lead just once. So we never ever really got off to a good start or a hot start against them. And that bullpen made sure that we didn't ever came back. So, which is interesting. And I think that maybe played into how Brewers manager Pat Murphy went about things in this series. He figured, our strength is our bullpen, so I'm going to lean on them more than I do our starters, which I think came back to bite him on the tip of his peen. Where did the Mets hold an advantage heading into the wild card series? Well, if we get on base and put pressure on the Brewers, like the Brewers put pressure on us running wild, then we can make stuff happen, and then we can hurt teams with our power. We ended up as one of just 6 teams to hit at least 200 home runs during the season. Did we see a lot of power in this wildcard series? No, until we did. It was just one moment, and it was the biggest moment. So we saved our best for last. We saved our power for when it mattered most. So in that game 1, Tuesday, right off the bat, before we get into the actual game, the broadcast sucked. And I think that no one's going to argue with that. Maybe even Brewers fans might have a way, they might feel a way about it, but like goddamn, universally across the board, I think all Mets fans thought the ESPN broadcast sucked, and that's nothing new, right? SNY is the best booth, best now with their new director. What's his name? John, I forget his name, but he has brought that production quality to a whole new level, cinematic, if you will. And really tells a story. It's like you're watching a movie. ESPN broadcast that game 1 and most of the series as if it was like an exhibition game, the All-Star game, a game in May or April, early season game that's like, day game. Like I'm astonished that the worldwide leader in sports can have such a make so many boneheaded decisions when it came to what to show, what to air, what to cut to. Just like brutal. Jared Seidler said this on Twitter: "Love that we're just ignoring a playoff game for a generic interview with a guy who hasn't played in 3 months." Referencing Christian Yelich, who hurt his back in like July and has not played since. Mark Luino at Giraffe Neck Mark on Twitter: "Nothing against Christian Yelich, but get him off my screen. Why do I need to physically see him talk in this absolutely pointless in-game interview?" Couldn't agree more. That interview went on forever. And they kept putting him on the screen, split screen, as if we need to see his face during that interview when you have literally a playoff game going on. A pretty big playoff game. That's close. That's not out of control yet. And so early on, too. Mike Mayer at Mike Mayer 22. "Why is ESPN spending like 10 minutes during the game interviewing a player who isn't even playing in this series?" Great question, Mike. I don't know who approved that decision, but that's like borderline grounds for dismissal, dude. There's so many other storylines, so many other players to focus on. I think to elevate the, oftentimes during the regular season, these production teams have devised these methods or ways to keep fans watching, because it's like, regular season, very long. And if you're not a fan of each team, or even if you are a fan of each team and it's out of hand, you're trying to just keep eyeballs, right? And you feel like that's the way to do it. When the playoffs come around, you need to elevate the heat, turn up the heat, elevate the moments. And everything they did was proactively taking away from moments, the drama, the weight of the moment, the gravitas. Everything they did was counterintuitive to what you should do for a playoff game. And maybe it was a case of ESPN was like, well, this is, I guess they went into it thinking like the Brewers are going to just demolish and mash and run us over and steamroll us. So why should we put much effort into it? It's going to be a 2-game sweep. Let's move it on. The broadcasters sucked. Doug Glanville stinks. Jumbo Shrimp Scampi, whatever the guy's other name was, he tried to he was kind of self-aware, and saying using Gary Cohen's call as like an homage, actively calling out that, fans of each of these teams are not fans of us, national broadcast teams. I get it. But if you know that and you're aware of it, step it the fuck up, dude. If you know it, do better. There was an inning-ending double play in that game 1 in a major spot where the Brewers were about to score, and the Mets turned a not so ho-hum double play to end the inning, and it was literally it was it's May 7th, 2:30 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. What? We're fighting for our lives here. We're living and dying with every pitch. This is playoff baseball. It's October. Come on, guy. Winker's triple, lackluster call. They're acting like it was, we're down by 10 and it's where there's 2 outs left and it's the 9th inning, and there's a post-game interview, or maybe it was in-game, with Lindor. And I think it was the reporter's Jesse Rogers, I think is his name is. And he ends it by calling him Frankie. It's like, do your homework, my guy. Francisco fucking hates it when people call him Frankie. Ugh. Another person on Twitter, I forgot her name. I think it was Diana or Steph. "My grievances with the national broadcasts in no particular order. No one wants in-game interviews. Keep that shit in April games, if at all. The camera work is messy, unprofessional, unprepared for any important moments. Camera angles are often bad and miss key moments." Yeah. There was a spot where they're interviewing Garrett Mitchell in the 9th, where the Mets have their last 3 batters up trying to salvage a win in game 2, I think it was. And they completely missed the entire Iglesias at bat. It's like, what the fuck? But as far as the game itself, game 1, did not get off to a hot start for the Metros and Luis Severino. 8 men to the plate in the first inning. 8 Brewers batters made it to the plate in the first inning. But for the second time in just 11 career postseason starts, Sevy completed the 6th inning. And it got dicey there in the 4th inning, and some people were calling for Mendoza to pull the plug. But he gave us 6 solid innings, 8 hits, 4 runs, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts. Not knocking your socks off or anything like that, but I believe the term is he shoved, right? As did Manaya and Quintana in games 2 and 3. Just tough, gritty pitching. Maybe you don't have your best stuff. You're not dominating guys. You're not overwhelming them, but you're just battling. He retired the last 8 batters that he faced to complete his performance and threw 105 pitches. So he gave our bullpen some respite, right? And allowed us to allowed the bullpen to kind of catch a breather, catch some wind. In that spot, though, it's tough. You want to win game 1. Game 1 is everything, right? I think, I don't know the stats off the top of my head, but I think it was like 80+% of teams that win game 1 go on to win the series. So it's like, that's a must have. And you kind of threw your best and brightest out there the day before and on Sunday to ensure that you got into the postseason. Diaz had thrown 60 pitches in the last 2 days, and Phil Maton had appeared in 3 straight games. So they were out for game 1. But then you had Jose Butto. He came in the 7th and the 8th and rolled. Looked really good. A lot of people were saying we should have kept him out there for the 9th with a 4-run lead. I'm not completely opposed to letting him start the 9th and having a quick hook. Ultimately, who knows if we lost this series, we could have pointed to that and said, why not have him go the 9th, try and finish it out, save Stanek, and maybe Stanek could go a little bit longer in his other appearances. You could. Yeah, it's a valid argument. Instead, they brought in Stanek. But in terms of Butto, here's a list of Mets relievers to throw at least 2 scoreless innings in their playoff debut. There's only 5. Butto is one of them. The other 4, Terry Leach in 88, Randy Myers in 88, Roger McDowell in 86, and Tug McGraw in 69. So he's in a rarefied air in terms of Mets franchise history. He's also the first Mets reliever to toss at least 2 scoreless and hitless innings with 3 or more strikeouts in a postseason game. Since who else? I feel like I mention this guy every time I do a Mets broadcast and I'm talking about Mets pitching. Sid Fernandez on October 27th, 1986. So, really great to see in game 1. Did not think we would see what happened in game 3. That's for sure. But, I don't think that ultimately changes how we think about Jose Butto. More times than not, he's going to give you a really quality outing. And then Ryan Stanek, a guy that has kind of flown under the radar, right? Got off to a rough start when we first got him and kind of settled down over the remainder of August and into September. I didn't know this, but and I didn't mention it in my preview. Stanek has a record of 3-0 with an ERA of 2.7 and 21 strikeouts in 23 appearances in his postseason career. And then we can go ahead and update that because he had a very nice 9th inning, slammed the door on the Brewers in any comeback attempt. So his updated postseason stats: 21 innings pitched, 9 hits, 6 earned, 6 walks, 22 Ks, 2.57 ERA. The last Brewer to reach base in game 1 was Jackson Chourio. Fucking Jackson Chourio, dude. Giving off Andrew Jones vibes. It was Jackson Chourio and his RBI single to make it 3-3 with 1 out in the 4th. Mets pitching retired the last 17 batters they faced. I didn't realize that Jesse Winker loves hitting against his former team, and especially Freddie Peralta. Winker with a big triple to get us on the board and to give us the lead. He claims he wasn't talking shit to Willy Adames as he was around in second. Maybe not. Adames reacted pretty quickly. So me thinks that Winker definitely was being a stinker right there. And, Adames is like, meet me in the parking lot. Winker's telling him to shut his trap. So people have their thoughts about Winker. When he wasn't a Met, he was a heel, he's a villain. We hated him. But then we almost loved how much we hated him. It was a very love-hate relationship. And then now that we have him on our team and we see the kind of fire, enthusiasm, and vigor that he has for the game and what he brings in terms of intensity, I personally love it. I love when guys show emotion. It means they care. And but you do have, I guess there's a small sample size of Mets fans that are opposed to it, don't like it. The fact that he scores the insurance run in Game 3 and slams his helmet down. I love that. There are people saying that's so corny, it's unnecessary. It's like, dude, this is a do or die elimination game. Every run is humongous. Let the guy live a little. So I personally love it. And so far has not come back to bite us. It might. That's the risk you run, but I don't think. I think he's smarter than that. Here's a list of RBI triples in Mets postseason history. Of course, Winker, Game 1 against the Brewers this year. Gary Carter in the Game 4 of the 88 NLCS against the Dodgers. Keith Hernandez, Game 2 against Houston in the 86 NLCS. Don Hahn in Game 5 of the 1973 World Series against the Oakland Athletics, formerly of Oakland. And Buddy Harrelson in the Game 1 of the NLCS, 69 in NLCS against the Bravos. When the Mets played the Brewers on September 27th, Jesse Winker was hit by the first pitch of his fourth inning at bat by Frankie Montas. And then he gets his history against Freddie Peralta, 6 for 18 with 2 home runs. So I think that has something to do with it. Winker comes up, he's getting booed by the entire stadium in Milwaukee. He got hit by a pitch that I didn't realize it at the time, but now it seems like that can be connected to his back issues, right? You take a 90 plus mile per hour fastball to a certain point in your back, upper buttock, that can stay with you. And that was the reason why we didn't see him a lot after that. Just trying to get right. So, he's going to feel a certain way. He probably didn't like his time with Milwaukee. Probably didn't get along with his teammates. Probably didn't like getting hit by a pitch on purpose. And so, he comes up with a huge triple in his first at bat. He's gonna air it out. So I didn't realize he had that kind of success against the Brewers, especially Peralta. Ended up he was the DH ahead of Martinez. I know he was playing. Was he playing right? No, because Martinez came in later as DH. So it was like, Mendoza had a plan. He had a game plan, he had a strategy, and in Game 1, it was like flawless execution. Every lever he pulled, every switch he flipped, it worked out. Maybe not so much in Games 2 and 3, but Game 1, it was like, whoa, Mendoza is showing off his managing chops. I love it. Starling Marte gets the sac fly, which, my God, I think we had a few sac flies in this series. And man, have I missed sac flies. I think someone tweeted out sacrifice flies are underrated, and by God, they are. It's just like when you have a guy on third with less than 2 outs, it's easier said than done. I get it. But goddamn, sac fly, it's just like, I love it. I truly do. And it's like, it stinks for the opposing team. It's like, fuck, we got the out, but we gave up the run, So Starling Marte hits the sac fly. It's great. We're up. And then Pat Murphy, Brewers manager, pulls Freddie Peralta before facing the Mets at the lineup a third time. Peralta had only thrown 68 pitches and retired his last 9 hitters. What are you doing? This goes back to we have one of the best bullpens in the majors. So we'll hand it off to them and we'll coast. And instead, with 2 outs, we score 5 runs in the 5th inning to pull ahead 8-4. Murphy goes to reliever Joel Payamps in the 5th, leading by a run. Payamps hadn't allowed an earned run since August. Had a 3.11 ERA that ranked best in the National League. So I guess you can't necessarily fault him for that. But in my eyes, it's like, I mean, Peralta had just retired the last 9, looked like he was cruising. Have him go out there. I mean, 68 pitches, dude. 68? Are you trying to save him to come back in game 3? You're looking that far ahead. You got to play for game 1. I'm all for, like, these people are like, well, we don't want to burn so-and-so because we might need him. You need to win. Especially in a 3-game series, you don't have the luxury of saving people. It's like you got to just, people that are not in this, I don't know if we'll talk about it now, but you're going to ask people to do things they don't normally do in the postseason. There are going to be people doing things that they have never done before, or maybe you think they're not equipped to handle, or maybe they've tried before and failed, but it's like, you got to get back on that horse. It's the postseason. It's do or die. You can't, there is no can't. It's you have to go out there and get, and there's no, well, we got to play for game 2, play for game. I don't know. You just got to go full steam ahead. So I think a lot of people were, especially Mets fans, were very happy to see Peralta out of the game, especially considering how he settled in. And then to jump all over Payamps was huge. And it all starts with Joey Church's Jose Iglesias Candelita, or Jose Hustle, as I like to call him. He beats the pitcher to first, would have ended the inning. Head first slide, beats the pitcher to first, and Tyrone Taylor scores from second base. So not only is Iglesias, going 100%, Tyrone Taylor with 2 outs is running his damnedest to get to that home plate and get us a run, and he does, and that opens the floodgates. Mark Vientos gets an RBI knock going the other way, which I think we did really well in game 1, going the other way, and then we kind of got away from it at the end of game 2 and into game 3, most of game 3. But here's a list of Mets aged 24 or younger with at least 2 hits and 2 RBIs in a postseason game. Ken Boswell, Darryl Strawberry, David Wright, Michael Conforto, and Mark Vientos. Here's a list of Mets with multiple hits and multiple RBIs in the postseason debut. Mark Vientos, David Wright, NLDS Game 1 versus the Dodgers. I think I was there. Carlos Delgado, 2006 NLDS Game 1 versus Dodgers. I think I was there. And Edgardo Alfonso, 1999 NLDS Game 1 versus the Diamondbacks. Followed that up with a JD Martinez RBI knock going the other way, dude. I love that. I know it's not incredibly sexy or flashy or even that exciting, but I love the fact that we have guys, sluggers, power hitters, who make their money going into the gap, going over the wall, just finding a way, finding a hole in the defense and just advancing the runner. Totally fine with that. Here's a list of Mets with a postseason pinch hit that resulted in multiple runs being scored. So this was Martinez coming in, pitch hitting for Winker as DH. Of course, you had Martinez, but then you had Bubba Trammell. Game 1 in the 2000 World Series against the Yankees. Trammell signed after Ordonez goes down, for the postseason. Bring in Bubba Trammell, former Detroit Tiger, and J.C. Martin, 1969 NLCS Game 1 versus the Braves. Mets DHs in September, not so hot. 9 for 93, 10 RBIs. JD Martinez, big reason for that. 0 for 30 something. But not anyone else that we put in that slot didn't really help us at all. And then in October, 2 for 3, 4 RBIs. So designated hitters got it out of their system. Let's get all that slump out of our system. All 5 runs for the Mets in the 5th inning came with 2 outs. They were 5 for 7 with runners in scoring position on the night, which is something that is to be cherished because it doesn't always happen, as we saw in games 2 and 3. The 5-run 5th was our most productive playoff inning since the 2006 NLCS Game 4 against the Cardinals when we scored 6. Delgado, Sean Green, and Jose Valentin knocked in home runs in that one. Mets hitters had 8 RBIs in Game 1 win, right? 7 of those came from players who were not on the opening day roster. People forget JD Martinez wasn't on the opening day roster. He signed that first week or second week, and then he had some injuries, so he didn't really debut until later on. Vientos lost the position battle to Beatty. Iglesias was not on the team yet. He signed him to a minor league contract, or he wasn't on the active Major League Baseball roster. He wasn't called up and activated until later. Winker we traded for. So yeah, it's kind of nuts how a team can evolve over the course of fucking what felt like 18 months. And like I mentioned, Mendoza had his best game as a Mets manager. Starting Winker, pinch hitting Martinez, not pulling Severino in the fourth, managing the bullpen well. Mets are now 53-40 all time in postseason play, or 570 winning percentage is the third best in Major League Baseball history. So, a lot of people, LOL Mets is the meme, right? As a franchise, we've been a sad sack of losers. We don't win. We don't go to the playoffs. Haven't won a World Series since '86. We get in the playoffs, though. It's not often, but we get in. And we aren't, we don't exit stage left right away. We tend to win some ball games and go deep. It's the key is to getting that win in the first game of the series, right? We're 9-11 all time in the first game of play of series. So I think when we do get off to that hot start and get that first game win, things are looking up. Meanwhile, the Brewers fell to 1-10 in their last 11 playoff games. Woof. Only one team in Major League postseason history has overcome multiple deficits and set down the final 17 batters in the same game. You take a fucking stab in the dark about who that team is. It's the New York Mets. So yeah, game one, I thought it was one of the best games we had played in the entire season. Maybe in the past 2 seasons, 3 seasons. Just from a managing standpoint, well managed. The way that we were able to use the field in the batter's box, working counts, making contact, making it tough on the pitchers. I thought game one was probably one of our most complete games that I've seen in a long time, especially in playoff postseason history. So, which brings us to game two. I was like, I can very easily see us coming out here without knowing Sean Manaea's postseason record and coming away with the sweep. And then I see Sean Manaea's postseason record. He had a record of 0-3 with an ERA of 15.26, 9 strikeouts and 3 appearances. Not great. So you'd have to think that maybe this would be a bullpen game, which is tough because we have a very limited bullpen that has been worked pretty hard the past week. So it's like we desperately need Manaea to shake that off and do something he hasn't been able to do. And for the most part, he did. And I know this is probably a hot take. He went 5 innings, right? He allowed 2 runs, 6 hits, didn't issue any walks, and struck out 4. In my opinion, I think you run him out there for the 6th. You try to get him to go 6th. And I think if he's able to go 6, we win this game. I don't know if it's that hot a take, but I really do believe that if we give him another inning, because I think he was only at 80 some odd pitches. Sevy had gone over 100. It's the playoffs. It's October. If you can get it done in 2 and get that extra day of rest to go, when you're going up against Philly, you take it. I think Manaea was probably willing to go back out there, but probably didn't push hard enough. But I think that was the right move, was to keep him in for the 6th. Yet again, Jose Iglesias continues to impress. He extends his hitting streak to 24 games. Only 3 Mets have ever had longer streaks: Moises Alou, David Wright, and Wilson Ramos. Remember that dude? Big old bull. From the 2019 team, I want to say. Catcher. Nimmo knocks in Iglesias, so it's nice to see that Nimmo is he's going through he was going through a bit of a funk, but is especially when it matters in big moments, he's come through. Lindor gets that sack fly that I love so much. Love that sack, dude. And we scored 3 runs in the first 2 innings. And then the bats go silent. You have that amazing play by Lindor in the field, the spin play. which prompted a lot of people to bring up the Ohtani MVP conversation again. Like, Ohtani's not doing that shit. And that's the kind of value that Francisco provides in the field, but also not just at the plate, but in the field as well. So, and even the base hit, the infield single that Lindor made a diving stop on probably saved a run, if you think about it. And we mentioned this. The Brewers were 17-17 against the Mets in stolen bases. They were second in baseball in stolen bases this year. And so far, 0 stolen bases through game 2. Alvarez has an amazing throw, but it's I don't think a lot of guys could have handled that throw. And Iglesias made it look so smooth and special. A great throw by Alvarez, but like the tag was even better by Iggy. I mean, just an amazing tag. So after 5 innings, we pull Manaea and we go to Reed Garrett for the 6th and Ryan Stanek for the 7th. Reed Garrett, Ryan Stanek, they do their jobs, and they don't throw a ton of pitches. They barely got into double digits. I think Garrett might have thrown 16, 14. Stanek threw like 11 pitches. And then we bring in Phil Maton. People are saying, why are you bringing in Maton? Why are you bringing in Maton? And to a certain extent, I agree. It's a couple things. One, let's extend Manaea to the 6th, see if we can get us through 6th. That way we don't have to go to Maton if we don't have to. Maybe you don't even have to use Stanek. I don't know. But because Garrett ran into a little bit of trouble, it wasn't exactly smooth sailing when he was in there. You know, he did benefit from Alvarez and Iggy's play. Caught stealing. So I don't know if you want to extend Garrett a second inning. Stanek is a different case, though. He did pitch the game before, closed it out, and then you had him go 11 pitches in this game. Could you have run him out there for the 8th? Maybe. He starts the 8th. But again, if Manaea goes 6, Garrett's in for the 7th, Stanek's in for the 8th, do you turn to Diaz for the 9th? This is now game 2. You had a day to rest instead of Maton. I don't know. I mean, we mentioned this before. You know, Maton, 0.83 ERA in the postseason, so there was no reason to doubt him coming in. But he was pitching for the 4th time in 5 days, and so he allowed 3 runs, 2 home runs. You know, I think after the home run, I would have started warming someone up in the pen. The problem is who, right? Ottavino. You know, I mean, I don't know. I think you look at if you were to poll Mets fans on the confidence in Ottavino, it'd be close to 0%. Every time the guy comes in, he's giving up runs. So I don't know that you're going to go to Ottavino. Peterson, it's possible David Peterson is an option. We saw they did end up eventually using him in game 3. So there weren't a ton of options to go to. I don't know if Denny Young was on the postseason roster. But again, it would have been nice to have Daniel Nunez, who is gone. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we were rolling with, and I don't think anyone was like, "Oh no, here comes Maton." I think a lot of us were like, "Fuck yeah, Maton's coming in, we got this." But after he gives up the home run, I would have started getting some warmed up, and I for sure would have started someone in the bullpen, anyone, when he got ripped. I mean, he was just getting smoked left and right. And then eventually, and of course, Mendoza leaves him in and he gives up more runs. So we led since the 2nd inning. We were 6 outs away from sweeping the series. Then Jackson Chourio, aged 20, Rookie of the Year candidate, and Garrett Mitchell hit the game-winning home runs. And the Brewers are not a home run hitting team. You know, 179 home runs this season. They hit 3 fewer than the league average. And there was a stat that was brought up a bunch of times. The team that out-homers the other team wins the series, right? And so at that point, they have the lead, not just in this game, but they have also out-homered us by a healthy margin. And so at that point, it's like, I think that's when a lot of people, myself included, got really down about our chances. Like, fuck, dude. We had it all sealed up. It was all neatly packaged with a nice little bow. And then Maton came in and all hell broke loose. And Mendoza said he went to Maton because he liked the Maton-Chourio matchup. and Chorio proved him dead wrong. Of course, I forget who, but they took another shot at the ESPN broadcast, and they had like a screenshot of Maton reacting to the home run that he gave up, and there was like Ken Rosenthal or whoever's like Jesse Rogers or whatever on the mound with him, sticking a mic in his face. I'm here on the mound with Phil Maton. He just gave up a game-tying home run. So Phil, walk me through the time you caught a butterfly when you were 7 years old. ESPN, you smell. And the Brewers bullpen, one of the best in the biz, delivered 5 1/3 scoreless innings with only 2 hits allowed. So they completely shut us down. And that was the game where it's like we're on our last legs here, and they're interviewing Garrett Mitchell in the dugout while critical at-bats are happening for the Mets. So I think everyone was really nervous, anxious, nauseous going into Game 3. I can't believe it was right there in our grasp. We let it slip away. And so I don't know that the feeling was very strong. There were some people that were remaining positive. I had mixed feelings, but I really did think that we were going to come out of it with a win. I figured, Maton just had an off night. If you take away Maton's off night, then I think we win that game 2. And it's about a 50-50 shot when it comes to our history as a franchise. The Mets are 9-8 all time in winner go home postseason games. We had Jose Quintana on the bump. I think of the 3 starters that we've had throughout most of the season, Quintana, Manaea, Severino, I think people probably had the least confidence in Quintana, which is interesting because I think he has probably the most postseason experience and the most postseason success, which I didn't know about. And he was pretty much rolling over his last 6 starts, 4-1, 0.74 ERA, 29 Ks. He's 9-7 with a 2.9 ERA, 2.98 ERA, and a 1.07 WHIP in his career against the Brewers over 23 games. So he's had a fair amount of success. And then going into this, the Mets, weren't expecting a whole lot out of him. They were like, if we can get 4 innings and 18 batters, that's considered a good outing for Quintana. Instead, he gives us 6. He ends up with a no decision, but he only allowed 4 hits, 1 walk, 0 earned runs, and 5 Ks, which is fucking huge. They put up a graphic while he was pitching saying that he had the lowest in-zone rate. I think it was like 41% of his pitches are in the zone. And so, his attack, his game plan, his approach is he wants batters to chase. And if batters don't chase, that, we talked about when we did the preview for this series, that his over the course of his career, this season for Quintana was his highest in terms of walks per 9, walk rate, strikeout rate was lower than usual. And you even look at like how he compares against the averages. He's lower K rate than the average, higher walk rate than the average. And if he misses his spots and he doesn't get guys to chase, that's when he starts walking guys, hitting guys, etc. So while Severino got off to a rough start, it was mostly because he wasn't hitting his spots or he wasn't getting close to the frame. And then he was. And that's how he was able to get through and, that 4th inning and then coast in the 5th and 6th. And I was really amazed by Quintana and what he was able to get the Brewers to do, because I think the Brewers had to have, they had to know that that was the case with Quintana, that he's going to try and make them the chase. And he doesn't throw a lot in the zone, and yet they did anyway. I was really surprised by the Brewers in that respect. Quintana is the first left-handed Mets pitcher to toss at least 6 scoreless innings in a road playoff start since Mike Hampton, October of 2000. The Mets went 33-48 when allowing the game's first run this season. That's a .407 winning percentage, which is actually the second best in Major League Baseball behind the Philadelphia Phillies. We're 27-38 with a .415 winning percentage. We had just 2 hits and 3 base runners over the first 8 innings, and I think that was basically all Francisco Lindor. It was like Lindor came to play, and everyone else did not. Tobias Myers, the starter for the Brewers, a fairly lesser known pitcher, was incredible. Pitched 5 innings. He was 1-15 in AAA 2 years ago. And I don't know that he had some decent numbers coming into this game. And yet again, I think Murphy makes the wrong move because I don't think Myers had thrown a ton of pitches. I think he was at 80 something, maybe not even that. And he pulls him after 5. Again, I think that's on Murphy. I know that he has a lot of trust in his bullpen. Again, one of the best in the friggin' majors. But you got to ride the hot hand. You got to keep going with it. So I think he makes a mistake there by pulling Myers after 5. He brings in Nick Mears, who strikes out Alonso and Winker for a 1-2-3 7th inning. Mears had a high ERA for Colorado this season, but excellent strikeout numbers and had uneven results with Milwaukee, but came back strong after missing a month with forearm inflammation. So that's kind of a risky gamble on Murphy's part to bring in Mears, who's not exactly the best part of their bullpen. And then Buto, who, had the 2 scoreless innings in game 1, comes back for game 3 after a day of rest in game 2 and gives up back-to-back homers. Jake Bauers, a veteran first baseman, and hits the pinch hit home run in the 7th inning. He was batting just 199 after a trade from the Yankees in the and Sal Frelick, right fielder, who, to my knowledge, is not really a power hitter, not really a home run hitter. And it was like, this is just, oh no, this is like so Mets. Yet again, a fairly no-name type player comes and kills us and crushes us out of the blue. Connor Gillespie with the Giants in the wild card 2016. You had what's-his-face with the Padres. I don't even remember the Padres. Trent Grisham. He killed us in 2022. And now you have Jake Bauers and Sal Frelick. It's like, who will be trivia answers for Mets questions, playoff questions for the rest of their lives. Although the way things turn out, maybe not so much. But you could have added them to the list of just like, here's a list of players that no one had on their fucking radar whatsoever and have crushed their hopes and dreams. And I think a lot of people had given up at that point, which is, come on now. You know better than that. You know this team, specifically this Mets team, right? Now, I know we got to believe, you got to believe. That's been a staple of ours since 73. But this specific Mets team has done things that are truly remarkable in terms of dramatic come from behind wins. They were among the league leaders in walk-off wins. We have seen them get no hit through 8 1/3 and win. We've seen them get shut out for most of the games and come back and win. So it's, I had not given up hope, and a lot of people were really, had given up. But once I saw Sean Manaea rocking a rally cap, dude, I knew we had it in us. I knew there's no way he's going to rock that rally cap and we're going to end our season right here. And who better to get things started than the captain? Francisco Lindor works an 8-pitch walk where he fouled off 3 pitches and laid off a pretty tantalizing pitch on the outside, checked his swing, was able to get the walk. During the regular season, hitters that fell behind Devin Williams, the closer for the Brewers. So hitters that fell behind Brewers closer Devin Williams, 1 and 2, were 1 for 33 with a walk. Lindor fell behind Williams, 1 and 2. He had created the spark for more Mets magic. Lindor in this game, 2 for 3 with a walk, a run, and a double. Could not have asked for a better effort from our guy. And then Brandon Nimmo, yet again, 2 strikes, comes up with a single to move Lindor to third. We have now first and third. We have 1 out. Pete Alonso steps into the batter's box. Pete Alonso hasn't had an extra base hit since September 29. 0 for his last whatever. You have people tweeting out lists of players that have had big clutch hits and moments throughout the 2024 season. One notable name is missing from that list. It's Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso never had his moment in the Mets regular season this year. He put up some decent numbers, but people are talking about it's his last season. The number of people especially after he dropped that friggin' pop-up foul ball on the first base side. When he dropped that, I mean, I tweeted out, God damn it, Pete. Because it's like, you're not doing yourself any favors, my guy. I'm trying to believe in you. I want you to do well. I want you as a lifelong man. I want him back. I've been on the record repeatedly. I want him fucking back. I don't care if bringing him back means we don't get Juan Soto. I'm partial to Pete Alonso, not Juan Soto. I want him back. I want him to be a lifelong Met. He's given us a ton of great memories, and people are willing to burn that in an instant because he's been struggling for most of the season, but mostly of late. When we need him in clutch spots, when we need him with runners in scoring position, when we need him, he hasn't come through. A large majority think we should cut ties with Pete Alonso. Yet he has a lifetime OPS plus of 134. He's the second most home runs out of anyone since 2019. And if you look at the free agent class for first baseman, I don't know, man. I don't see a lot of names that I like. I guess maybe we could sign Rhys Hoskins. Would you want that? Anthony Rizzo. Bring back Dom Smith. Justin Turner. JD Doubles Davis. Garrett Cooper. Bring back Canna. I get it. People want to move Vientos to first. And that will allow us to bring in Soto. And you know what? If that ends up happening, I wouldn't hate it, but I would hate losing Pete Alonso. Before the game, Carlos Mendoza said, we're waiting for that one swing, and hopefully today is the day. Our manager is a goddamn psychic. Because Pete Alonso steps in, and everyone's saying, get off my team, Pete. You're worthless. You're worthless. Get the hell off my team. I never want to see you on my team again. All because he's having somewhat of a down year. Despite all the big knocks he's had over his Mets career, besides setting records, besides being on the precipice of setting more records, and one of the most prolific sluggers and power hitters the Mets have ever had. And on top of that, he fucking loves the team. He loves the Mets. He loves the fans. He loves the city. He loves the organization. He loves it. He loves it so much that maybe he cares a little too much and presses a little too much. So Pete Alonso steps in with 1 out, 2 runners on, down by multiple runs, 2-0. He works the count to 3-1. And I got to tell you, there was something about his mannerisms, his body language, his behavior in that moment that gave me a lot of belief. It was the most positive that I have been for Pete Alonso in an at-bat, in a high-leverage, intense, do-or-die situation. It's the most positive I've ever been with Pete Alonso. I swear to God, I have 0 witnesses other than my 6-year-old daughter. But I was talking to him through the TV screen the entire at-bat. Looking good, Pete. That's a good eye. It's a good take. Because I've seen at-bats with him before where he presses. He's swinging too hard. He's swinging at balls out of the zone. He's chasing pitches. He wasn't doing that. He did something with his body after a couple pitches that made me think, oh, shit, I think Pete's locked in here. Sure enough, 3-1. Devin Williams, whose changeup has been one of, if not his most successful pitch. I mean, they showed statistics for him. People don't hit his changeup. He has a very high whiff rate, very high strikeout rate with it. The batting average is like below sub 200. Pete sees a changeup, 80 some odd miles per hour, float into the middle of the plate. And he hits it the other way. And I'm telling you, he knew immediately, which is insane because that ball did not get out by much. He knew that ball was gone and that ball barely got out. Went 367 feet. And I'm starting to think if that fence, like if they didn't, that fence takes a very hard right turn as it's going to center field. And if Frelick has another 2 or 3 feet, is he able to jump and get that? Maybe. So it's just like the odds. I mean, we can talk about win probability. That win probability fucking thing that ESPN put up gave everyone agita. Every Mets fan, no Mets fan liked that at all. The win probability graphic was just bananas. We were at like 17% win probability or less in the ninth inning when it started, and Pete goes oppo. He goes oppo. And for most of that game, it was driving me nuts. I was saying to myself, I'm seeing guys like Vientos and Martinez, guys who I know can go the other way with the ball and drive the ball the other way. We saw them do it in game 1, and then they got away from it in game 3. And I'm saying to myself, why are these guys swinging when the ball's on the outer half? Why are they swinging as if it's down the middle or in on the inner side, inner portion of the plate? Why are they taking that approach? Why are they not going the other way like they were in game 1? And sure enough, Pete goes the other way on a changeup. Really sat back on it. 3-1. It's possible regular season Pete, or slumping, like mired in the deepest recesses of his slump Pete, decides to take that to try and get a walk, but not in this moment. Not when it's the top of the ninth and it's a do or die. We're down by 2, guys on, runners in scoring position. I mean, he said that he thought about this and played this out in his head as a kid multiple times in his backyard. I have zero doubt he did that. And then he gets to do it on this big stage in the spotlight. We're the only game being played in Major League Baseball, and he wins the game. He hit the 10th go-ahead home run in the 9th or later in a winner-take-all game in postseason history. He hit the first of those 10 go-ahead home runs with his team trailing. So in every other instance, in those other 9 instances, teams were tied up. This is the only instance of a team trailing and winning and going ahead and winning in a winner-take-all game. At 0.65 win probability added, WPA, Pete Alonso's home run was the most pivotal postseason non-walk-off hit since Albert Pujols versus Brad Lidge in the 2005 NLCS. So again, because of the top 9, you still got to go out there and shut them down in the 9th. But massive, just a massive blow. I mean, it completely took the wind out of the sails for Milwaukee. Completely took the crowd out of it. Crowd was silenced, and they had to think like, "Holy fuck, we're gonna lose again." Here's a list of players with home runs, Mets hitters with home runs in a winner-take-all game: Alonso in the wild card, Murphy in the 2015 LDS, Ray Knight in the 86 World Series, and Dale Strawberry in the 86 World Series. 86 and 2015 World Series appearances. Interesting. It had been 57 days since Brewers closer Devin Williams last allowed a home run. It's the only second home run he allowed all year. Devin Williams pitched 22 games this season. After missing 4 months with fractures in his back, he had 14 saves and 15 chances and allowed only 1 home run, which was insignificant home run in early August. For his career, Williams has allowed just 15 home runs in 235 and 2/3 regular season innings, or just 0.6 per 9 innings. And I'm telling you, I must have watched that fucking home run on loop on Twitter for longer than I watched the actual game. I think the game was about less than 3 hours. It ended around 10 something. I watched that home run in the home run call by Howie Rose on Mets radio, 880 AM for another 2 hours. I could not stop watching it. The crack of the bat, his immediate reaction, the screams that happened right when the ball made contact and flew off the bat. And then you have Howie Rose's call, man, one of the best calls he's ever made as a Mets broadcaster, one of the best calls in postseason baseball history, a fairy tale season with a fairy tale swing. He did it. And then we add to it. And that's what I liked, is that we continued. I like that we get the insurance runs, that we kept our intensity, kept the emotions up. We didn't say, the game's over, we won. Jesse Winker gets hit by a pitch again, gets booed, hit by a pitch, steals a base with a bad back, which was incredible. You want to talk about his success against his former team, 316 average, 1,000 OPS, 14 home runs, 30 RBIs. Holy shit. He's gotten booed so much in visiting ballparks that anytime that Carlos Mendoza walks by him, he boos him too. And I love it. I love it. I think the whole team should boo him. He just thrives on it. He feeds off of it. I mean, there are pictures of him with a cigar in his mouth, his arms crossed, looking at the camera, standing, looking like just a power stance, looking at it like a fucking badass. Starling Marte drives him in, again, going the other way, which I loved. And then we have David Peterson, one of our best starters down the stretch, especially in the second half. Come in and get his first career save, ends the game on a double play from who else? The guy who put us on his back and carried us, Francisco Lindor. Teams entered today at 7-105 when trailing, entering the ninth in a winner-take-all postseason game. 2-82 when trailing by 2 or more runs. And now there are 3 teams that have won and come back. The other 2 were the Braves or the Pirates in Game 7 of the 92 NLCS. I mean, I vividly remember Sid Bream during that friggin' stretch. That was sucked as a Mets fan watching that. And then the Cardinals over the Nationals in the 2012 NLDS Game 5. Don't remember that as much. Mets are the first team in Major League Baseball history to clinch a postseason spot in a win a playoff series, both via games in which they faced a deficit in the 9th inning or later. And it's all thanks to the playoff pumpkin. Pete Alonso goes to a pumpkin patch in Wisconsin with his wife, picks out a pumpkin, takes a picture, posts it he's smoking beers in the post-game celebration, champagne everywhere, ski goggles on. He's getting interviewed. Interviewer goes, "What's that you got?" He goes, "It's a pumpkin." What's special about it? What's a playoff pumpkin? Any story behind it? Nope. Playoff pumpkin. It's like, it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much. And then someone tweeted this: the Mets keep introducing new characters every 3 months, like the baseball version of Too Many Cooks, which if you're not familiar, Google Too Many Cooks, Adult Swim. It's a wildly bizarre, eccentric, off the wall bananas video that will drive you insane. But I kind of love it. I do. Anything that you can embrace and have it be organic and not force it and have it propel you, I'm all for it. It's like we didn't just hang our hat on one thing this year and run it into the ground. Everything that came our way, we kind of just took to it. Grimace, Candelita, OMG, Hawk Tua, the Grizz Dog, Seymour Wiener, like everything and anything. Playoff pumpkin, it doesn't matter. It's like, it's just, they embrace it. And believe me, the rest of the league fucking hates it, which I love even more. They hate that the Mets are doing this kind of shit. It's so like Mickey Mouse, blah, 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 corny. I don't give a fuck, dude. Whatever can bring the team together and get them to play and motivate them and give them energy and carry them on. You know, it's a token. I want to say a talisman, but it's something that you can hold on to, and you look at it and it's a mantra, and it's just seared into your brain and you have positive associations with it. We talked about it at the All-Star break. Like at that point, it was just, a couple things, but it was like, if that is what is, you can bring your brain and your mind to that, and it's superstitious, sure, but there's a reason superstition can work. It just puts you in the right mindset. So I like could not get enough. It was hard to sleep last night, as it was for a lot of Mets fans, because it was just like I was liking every single goddamn tweet that came across my timeline. I must have watched that home run and people celebrating that home run, reactions to the home run, the Howie Call, the remix, the Moneyball remix. I watched it all. 1,000 times. So many goddamn times. I couldn't, I had to force myself to close my phone. I would have been up all night watching that shit. Some people were up till 3 a.m. watching it. And I get it. I mean, Citi Field, there was a watch party, fairly packed for a watch party. They went nuts. I watched the reaction video from the 7 Line at Playwright, a bar in New York, and it was pandemonium. I watched the Barstool Sports, Mets fans at the electric chair live stream. They lost their minds. There was a Buccaneers Falcons watch party for Barstool Sports, and they lost their gourd. So it's a huge, huge moment in Major League Baseball for the Mets and for Pete Alonso. But this might be the best item to come out of the Mets beating the Brewers. Teams that have eliminated the Brewers in the postseason have gone on to appear in the World Series. 81, the Yankees beat the Brewers. The Brewers win the American League. The ALDS go on to face the Dodgers in the World Series. In 82, the Cardinals beat the Brewers in the World Series. In 2008, the Phillies defeated the Brewers in the NLDS, go on to win the World Series. Cardinals in 2011 defeat the Brewers in the NLCS, lose in the World Series or win in the World Series. I think they might have won the World Series. 2018, Dodgers beat the Brewers in the NLCS. 2019, the Nationals beat the Brewers in the wild card. 2020, the Dodgers beat the Brewers in the wild card, win the World Series. Yes, the Cardinals did win in 2011. Dodgers did not win in 2018. Nats won in 2019. Dodgers won in 2020. And that Fugazi COVID season. Braves in 2021 beat the Brewers in the NLDS, win the World Series. D-backs last year beat the Brewers in the wild card, went to the World Series, but lost to the Rangers. Now we have the New York Metros in 2024 beating the Brewers in the wild card, a team that had given them fucking fits, dude, for a very long time in a place where they do not win a lot. We won. And now we get to go up against the Phillies. This was the 6th consecutive playoff series loss for the Brewers. And Rhys Hoskins caught a lot of shit. He was trending on Twitter. Caught a lot of shit from Mets fans, and rightfully so. It was that opening series in March when we got swept by the Brewers in Citi Field. Rhys Hoskins goes in hard on second. Jeff McNeil takes issue with it, chirps him. And then from the dugout, Rhys Hoskins is making the crybaby face, mocking Jeff McNeil, calling him a crybaby. And then Rhys Hoskins, with the Brewers season on the line, goes 0 for 9 with 3 strikeouts. And my God, I've never seen a guy that's easier to throw out in a double play. There were a couple times where he hit a slow ground ball and like Lindor's playing back and not charging it, and he gives a soft toss to Iglesias, and I'm like, oh no! And then you see the throw to first, and Hoskins is like barely 3/4 up the first baseline. That dude is fucking slow as shit. And I tweeted it out too. I said, hey, Rhys Hoskins. I tagged him like, cry me a river, dude. With the deep from the boys, cry me a fucking river. And he got a lot of that. Mets fans, don't forget, this is a former Philly. He did some trash ass shit when he was with the Phillies, which we'll get to. And it came back on him big time. So it's not how you start, it's how you finish. We got the last laugh there. Good to see. So that's Mets Brewers wild card series recap and review. So what did we learn from the wild card? Well, we've said it ad nauseum. Game 1 is everything. Since the league moved to the 3-game wild card series 2 years ago, the winner of Game 1 has won all 12 series. Only 2 series have even gone to Game 3. It's an 83% sweep rate. 3 of the 4 teams that got ace caliber performances in the wild card opener wound up sweeping. So obviously Sevy, not exactly ace level, right? He gutted it out, which was good to see. Similar to Jacob deGrom in the 2015 NLDS. And the home team has fared even worse in the wild card series, losing 8 of 12. So this whole home field advantage thing, maybe it's not all cracked up, but it's all cracked up to be. We were so upset that we did not win the division 2 years ago and get a bye
which in retrospect, maybe a bye would have been nice. But we had home field. We had all 3 home games in the wild card against the Padres and couldn't pull it out. So there's something to be said about being the road team and having that kind of it's us against the world mentality. I guess it does more for you. I mean, I remember a time where it's like there was a home field advantage in baseball. And it was like, how can you, I mean, I forget which series it was. I think it was when the Pirates were in the playoffs. And I can't remember his name right now. But the pitcher on the mound got rattled. The crowd just got to him. But we're just not seeing that anymore. And I mean, like that place, I mean, game 2, when the Brewers do have the go on that run against, I guess even game 3, when they go on that run against Maton in 2 and then against Buto in 3, I mean, that crowd was off the charts. So I don't know. 5 teams won at least 16 games in September. The Tigers, Padres, and Mets won a wild card series. And the Dodgers are in a first round bye. I don't know who the 5th team is. But, I mean, yeah, you finished strong. You carried it on into the playoffs. Tigers, Padres, Mets handled their business. And then the Dodgers, Padres is going to be an awesome series. The only wildcard team that didn't have a winning second half record was the Orioles, who went 33-33 and were knocked out in 2 games. And the Phillies also went 33-33 after the break. Uh-oh. Are the Phillies going to follow suit, follow Baltimore's path and get knocked out? I think so. So let's preview the last remaining of those divisional series, the Mets and the Phillies. The New York Mets are back in the division series for the first time since 2015. The Phillies posted the second best record in the majors and led the NL East every day from May 3rd to the season's end, en route to their first division title in 13 years. Congratulations. Phillies won 7 of 13 games against us and own a all-time edge of 555 to 525. Like I said, in the first of the 2 September series in Philly, we had the opportunity to win 2 of those games and blew it late. So I don't want to say that no one has anyone's number. I think this is like pretty evenly matched. The schedule as it is right now, Mets travel to Philly for the first 2 games, game 1 and game 2, Saturday and Sunday, both 4:00 starts, and then games 3 and 4 at Citi Field, Tuesday and Wednesday. And then game 5 will be in Philly, Friday, October 11th. If necessary, all games are on Fox or FS1. Philadelphia has the best or second best starting rotation and the best or second best bullpen in the playoffs. And often, pitching is usually what teams ride. If you look historically at the teams that make it through to the World Series and win, it's usually on the basis of their pitching. So they are positioned for success. They also have one of the best, deepest pitching staffs. Zach Wheeler is a Cy Young candidate. Aaron Nola had a great season and also had a great postseason last year with a 2.35 ERA. Christopher Sanchez and his super changeup should be able to do well. And then Ranger Suarez as a 5-pitch Mitch. 5-pitch mix, which he's able to command. And they have 2 all-star relievers in Hoffman and Strahm. Over the last 3 seasons, the Mets have faced either Nola or Wheeler 15 times and won 12 of those games. Nola has pitched to a 4.25 ERA in those games. Wheeler has a 4.79 ERA. Phillies are 104-68 in all other regular season starts made by the pair. So while your pitching is typically aces against the rest of the league, not so much against the Metropolitans. And that's why I got to feel confident. And if you're Philly, you got to feel a little spooked, just a little nervous, just a little anxious about the Mets coming off riding this wave. I'd love to get a Phillies fan perspective, but like, Jesus, you just saw them 2 massive game-winning situations against two of the better teams, the Brewers and the Braves. You can't watch that kind of shit and think, oh, it's all smoke and mirrors. So we're heading for more power. We are just one spot ahead of the Phillies, though, in terms of home runs, total home runs over the season. But we can also manufacture runs, and that's what I was really pleased with in Game 1. And we were able to continue it here and there in Games 2 and 3, although the bats went silent for a long stretch. Going from Game 2 to Game 3, we left a lot of runners in scoring position, which would have been the main storyline had we lost. The 0 for 9, I want to say, with runners in scoring position. So hopefully that changes. And maybe, Pete's home run can get the power going back. But to me, and I think Kevin Millar said this on the MLB Network, it's like if you're going up there looking to hit home runs, you're not going to hit home runs. And if you can look to just stay and drive it to the other side of the field, go oppo with it, you'll have much better success. So I'm hoping that's the approach that we take there, because we kind of got away from it in Games 2 and 3. Philly shortstop Trey Turner, spotlights on him. He was hitless in his final 15 at-bats of the NLCS versus the Diamondbacks last year. And then, but that was coming off of the NLDS against the Braves, in which he was 8 for 17 with 4 extra base hits. He has been susceptible to chasing pitchers all year, which is good news for Mets pitchers, because I feel like we've done a pretty decent job, at least Manaea and Quintana, in getting guys to chase. And Turner only hit 38% of his homers. He hit 38% of his homers in 12 days during July, and then he only hit 2 home runs from July 20th to August 30th. So he's on a bit of a power outage. So spotlight's on him. The spotlight's on, who do you think? The main man, Polar Bear, Pete Alonso. He has owned Aaron Nola over his career. A 320 average, 370 on-base percentage, 680 slugging percentage, and 54 career plate appearances, including 5 home runs. So don't be surprised if he goes yah off Nola. The tail of the tape, who has the edge? Well, the Mets, they're 7th in runs per game at 4.74. Phillies are 5th with 4.84 runs per game. Starting pitching ERA, the Mets are 12th with a 3.91. Phillies are 8th, 3.81. Relief pitching ERA for the Mets is 17th at 4.03. Phillies are 14th at a 3.94. And then the Mets are 7th in OPS plus at a 108. Phillies are 6th with an OPS plus of 109. So fairly evenly matched. Slightly better pitching and slightly better hitting for the Phillies. Phillies top performers, no real surprises here. There's one name you might not recognize, but in terms of the lineup, Bryce Harper, 30 home runs, 42 doubles, 149 OPS plus with a WAR of 4.8. I failed to look up his stats against the Mets, but I don't think he really kills the Mets. I could be completely wrong about that, but I feel like dating back to even his time with the Nationals, I think he's pretty much struggled against the Mets. Top pitcher is Zach Wheeler for the Phillies, 2.57 ERA, 224 strikeouts, 0.955 whip with a WAR 6.1. But again, when he goes up against the Amazons, he's not so amazing. And then the bullpen, Jeff Hoffman, 2.17 ERA, 188 ERA plus, 12.1 strikeouts per 9 with a WAR 2. And then in the field, Alec Baum, surprisingly, third baseman, 5 outs above average, 4.47 UZR, whatever the fuck that is. And then 5.7 defensive WAR. So yeah, maybe, he cools off at the hot corner. And then in terms of our top performers, there's no question here. Francisco Lindor, 33 home runs, 39 doubles, 29 stolen bases, a WAR 7. Sean Manaea has been our top pitcher. My guess is maybe we'll see him in Game 3. It seems like they're leaning towards Tyler McGill for Game 1. I think David Peterson was originally the plan for Game 1, but we needed him in the 9th because we had to go to Diaz in the 7th in Game 3 against the Brewers. That's how bad it got. And then Diaz, I I mean, Diaz was all over the place. I mean, that was the wildest I've ever seen him. So the fact that he was able to get through 2 innings without giving up any runs, truly unbelievable. And then despite what happened in game 3, Jose Butto has been our top performer out of the bullpen, 2.55 ERA, 155 ERA plus 9.6 Ks per 9 with a WAR 2.2. And Lindor is our best defender. 2 defensive runs saved with a 17.4 defensive WAR. I wonder what Ohtani's defensive WAR is. Oh, right. So a lot of people are taking the Phillies, understandable, but there's no one out there that's really saying the Phillies are going to sweep. And I don't think there's a lot of people are thinking that this is probably going to go 5 games. And I'm right there with them. But I really do think the Mets are going to pull it out. I think that game 3, Citi Field is going to be a loony bin, a straight up asylum for the mentally ill. It's going to be bananar, so cray. And I want to go. Can I go? No, but I want to. So yeah, I mean, ever since that series in London, it's like the Phillies don't seem so. That was a huge win that we came away with in that final game of the London series, 6-5. I think that was huge. I think that gave us a lot of confidence to say, hey, this is a team that's been to the World Series 2 years ago, went to the NLCS last year, and we're staying with them punch for punch, playing even games. I mean, we didn't get really embarrassed by the Phillies a lot this season, I don't think. Every game was close, and I'm just, I feel really good about our prospects against this team. And my God, it's so good for baseball. And it's the first time these 2 teams are facing off in the playoffs, which is kind of nuts. But if you think about it, it's because of the way the playoff format and playoff structure is. We're both in the East for so long. And there were only so many spots. But since the playoffs have expanded, not once have we faced each other until now. So it's going to be an upset special, dude. I just feel it in my bones. It's going to be intense. I don't know. I'm losing my voice as it is now. I don't know how I'm going to get through this series. I don't know how a lot of fans are going to get through it. I polished off a bottle of Jameson over the 3-game series with the Brewers. Probably have to do double that for the Phillies series, but I thought I would take a look at well, no, I can't. I'm out of time. Holy shit. But maybe I'll get to it another time. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Let's go, Mets. Let's go, Mets. Let's go, Mets. OMG. OMG. Ooh, Philly, we're coming for you. Philly. All right, talk to you next time. LFGM.